This What's Working with Cam Marston podcast is brought to you courtesy of Michelob Ultra Beer.
They say consistency is the key to success. They weren't wrong. So how about grabbing a beer that's consistently smooth, consistently refreshing, and consistently light? You might just find that the road to success can be pretty enjoyable. Michelob Ultra, the perfect balance of taste and refreshment, and only 2.6 carbs and 95 calories. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Enjoy responsibly. Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
All right, here we go. Welcome to What's Working, everyone. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is the business show, talk show / podcast designed to bring you the trends influencing the workplace, the workforce, and the marketplace around us. I find the guests that can help us understand the trends in such a way that we can do something with them and make the world around us a little bit better at whatever it is that we do. Again, welcome. I'm glad you're on for the ride. I have looked forward to this show, I guess, for the past 6 months or so, and going to get into the show by first telling a bit of a story. It has become a tradition in the Marston family household that as soon as one of our children graduate from high school and get their college aspirations lined up, we interview them on the show. I essentially am asking my kids, what does the future look like for you? What are you excited about out there? What are you worried about out there? How do you see the world, and how might your view of the world be different than my own? And I put my daughter on the show a couple years ago. She's now a sophomore at Ole Miss, doing very, very well. And she had prepared for the conversation. I'd given her a handful of questions that we discussed, and she had a legal pad full of content ready to be discussed for the show. And her show got a lot of downloads. I mean, I was both impressed and a little bit envious of the number of downloads the podcast version of her show got. Today, we line up that second child in my household. We have a total of 4. And when I come back from break here in the next little while, I'm going to have my son, Spencer Marston, on the show with me. Spencer is going to graduate here in a couple of weeks from high school and head off to the University of Alabama if everything remains the same. But here's what I think is going to be really interesting about this conversation with my son, and that is the world has changed dramatically in the last couple of years. My daughter experienced the COVID times in high school. My son's experienced them in the early days of high school. I want to know what COVID has done to these kids. I want to know how they see the world differently as a result of COVID. Additionally, when I interviewed my daughter, artificial intelligence and ChatGPT wasn't on the radar. I mean, it was being designed and developed in the background of these organizations. But now that it's present in our world and our kids are learning how to use it, and even I'm learning how to use it, what are their opinions on the world after ChatGPT and other things like that get introduced to our society? How is it going to change things? Is it going to be better? Is it going to be worse? And I'm also curious about how kids these days look at job opportunities. What does the world look like for them in terms of jobs? Do they see the world opening up because of artificial intelligence or closing down? What type of skills will be necessary in order to fully engaged in the work world or even in the college world, considering this new technology? If you heard my interview with Heikki Melnin, who is the CEO of Outokumpu, he got a kind of a behind-the-doors view of artificial intelligence when he visited Microsoft in Seattle. And his comment to me was, Cam, you remember the world prior to the cell phone. You also are engaging the world daily in a world with cell phones. And his comment was this that caught me off guard. We will see a bigger change in lifestyle. Artificial intelligence will have a bigger impact on each of us than the cell phone did when it was introduced in your lifetime. Now, that's a big-o statement, that the cell phone will not be anything compared to the disruption in our lives that will be brought about by artificial intelligence. So let's bring that to an 18-year-old. What do they see the world as with this stuff? It will be very interesting to hear these conversations, as well as what I'm curious what they think and particularly my son, who will be here when we get back from break, what he thinks the world will, what has happened to him in his lifetime thus far, whether it be his education, his volunteer activities, his athletics, etc., that have prepared him for a world in college and on the other side of college. And hopefully we can do this without some sort of indictment of my wife and my parenting skills. The first one we worked real hard on. That first child we worked real hard on. The second one a little bit less so. When I get my twins on the show in a couple of years, I'll pretty much have to introduce myself to them. That's the way things are going. Anyway, you're listening to What's Working. When we get back from break, you'll meet my son, Spencer Marston, and you'll hear me probably my voice crack. We'll be right back.
This is Trey Langus with Transworld Business Advisors. I help business owners sell their businesses from mom and pop size to large mergers and acquisitions. We have a huge buyer database looking for quality businesses to buy right now. Confidentiality guaranteed. If you're a business owner considering an exit within the next few years, let's talk. Again, I'm Trey Langus. Find me at Transworld Business Advisors or Google my name.
We're back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston in the studio today with a very special guest sitting across from me. It's become a tradition, as I said in the opening segment, that as each of my children graduate from high school, I'm going to put them on the show and get an idea of how the world looks to an 18-year-old today as they leave high school and pursue whatever comes next to them. Across from me is sitting Spencer Marston, my favorite oldest son. And he's heard that a lot in our household. And we're going to get into some content here about the world. Spencer, as I say to every guest that's ever been in this studio, thank you for your time and welcome to What's Working.
Thank you for having me.
What do you think about, well, listen, I'm already off I'm off script if I were to ask you that. Let's go down some of these questions we've somewhat prepared, and I'll begin with the first one. You're an 18-year-old young man. The world today is much different than when I was 18 or when my listeners were 18. What excites you about the future today? What worries you?
What excites me is I think there's a lot of interesting possibilities that are opening as technology advances. And I think that AI will eventually it will drive the world and drive things in the workplace, and it'll help a lot.
Do you think AI is going to take jobs that maybe right now are available to you, but in 4 years out on the other side of college may not be? Does AI represent a risk?
I think it does. I think it could definitely take some jobs. I saw the other day that IBM replaced around 2,000 jobs with AI, and even some of them were HR jobs that they replaced with AI.
Yeah, I've always read that HR will someday be downsized due to technology. Same with accountants and stuff like that. But I haven't seen it happen. That's interesting that IBM has been the first one that I'm now aware of that actually has done that. How are you using HI in any given day?
I haven't really used it much. I used it once to help me with a prompt on a paper.
Yeah.
I asked it if it would give me a breakdown of my prompt, and it did, and then I wrote my paper from what it gave me.
How are your teachers determining that AI isn't writing the entire paper?
I'm not sure they can.
Really?
I don't really know.
So you have a signature style of writing. I know that after reading your stuff for years, what you've written and what an AI would have written. Are they not doing the same thing? Have you heard of your teachers questioning any students to say, are you writing this or are you using the internet to write this?
I have not heard of that, but they developed some sort of program at Harvard where they can tell if it's AI or if it's a human that wrote it.
Really? What is that? How does that work? Do you know?
I have no clue. I saw it, and it's caught thousands of students in colleges using AI to write papers.
Are your teachers encouraging you to use AI for prompts, like you said, or have they weighed in on whether to use it or not?
Our teachers haven't really talked about it much. I haven't heard anything about it at school, but I'm sure in other places it's very discouraged.
Yeah, I'm curious what the teaching corps out there across the nation will do as they begin to weigh the positives and negatives of this thing. Are you aware of any of your friends that are using any of this AI stuff regularly?
Not regularly, but I know a couple of friends have done the same thing that I have with the papers and stuff like that. Define for me, and I should know this, I should have asked this earlier. Define for me what a prompt is. It gives you, it's like a sentence that gives you, it tells you what you're going to write about.
Okay.
So it'd be like, explain why artificial intelligence is going to benefit the world, or is it going to hurt the world in the future.
So what was the assignment that required you to ask for the prompt?
It was a research paper, and I was researching the wage disparity between men and women in sports. And so I got this thing to help me write a couple of sentences about where my paper should lead. And what, so you went in and said, create a prompt for me. What software did you use? Which AI software? I used ChatGPT.
ChatGPT is the one I use most frequently, which is about once a week messing around. But you went into that and asked it what? What words did you enter into the slot there to give you the prompt?
I think I'm trying to remember. It was give me a position on how to explain the wage disparity within the world of sports.
Why did you choose that topic? That's a very volatile topic. I know you love sports. I know you're an athlete. Why that?
Because to me, the wage disparity in sports has not been anything about sexism. It's been about who pulls in more money.
It's been about viewers, about attendance.
Viewers, yeah. Media rights and stuff like that.
Yeah. So what position did you take on this?
I took the position of it's not any inherent sexism. It's just that the men have pulled in a lot more money than the women in most sports besides, tennis. Like the winner of the Women's Australian Open made more than the winner of the Men's Australian Open in tennis, because the women pulled in so much more money than the men in tennis.
Is that typical of all tennis? Would that be the same in Wimbledon and U.S. Open? Do the women pour in more viewers than do the men?
I think it's probably pretty close, but usually I think the women pull in just a little bit more money.
So in the sports where it's equal, are the male and females? In the sports where male and females are pulling in the same amount of viewers and attendees, the pay is equal.
Well, there's not many examples of that, but it would be if that were to happen.
So tennis would be the only example.
Tennis is the main example.
So we were talking about the future. What does the future look like for you? We got into the weeds on AN. What more excites you about the future? What worries you?
I'm excited to see where technology takes us within like the medical field. Mm-hmm. To see just to see what diseases it can cure eventually and how it can treat brain injuries and stuff like that.
Where does that interest come from?
Well, so the chip that Elon Musk created that he was putting in people that they're supposed to put in people's heads.
Now, is this real, or is this some of these alternative sites?
This was a real thing. He was creating like a chip that he was going to, I don't know, I haven't heard anything about it in months, but he was going to put a chip in people's heads that would be able to heal like brain injuries. Like if you had a limb that was like you had nerve damage in the limb, it would supposedly be able to repair the nerve damage eventually.
Oh, interesting.
And stuff like that.
What do you think about him?
I think he's a genius.
Yeah. He's very polarizing, and you're on the plus side.
I think he's doing good for the world.
Do you follow him?
On Twitter?
Wherever he posts.
I do follow him on Twitter.
Do you interact with him?
I do not.
No. All right. So what worries you about the future?
I think the AI taking jobs is definitely a big worry, especially after seeing all those jobs taken at IBM by AI. And that's definitely a big worry for, I think, a lot of people.
Do you follow politics at all?
Somewhat.
Does the politics of the world worry you?
Definitely.
Tell me more.
I mean, we've been on the brink of nuclear war for 2 years now.
With the Ukraine thing?
With Ukraine, Russia.
Yeah.
And then I think the presidential election, this upcoming election, is going to tear our country in half.
You think there's going to be more violence, or have people had enough?
I don't know if there's going to be more violence, but I think it's definitely going to split our country straight down the middle.
What's going to be, what are the politics going to be like 20 years from now? Do you think it's going to repair? Is this a pendulum swing and we're at a limit on one side of the pendulum swing and it's going to come back to more cooperation, or is it only going to get worse?
I feel like it could repair, but I'm not sure it will.
Yeah. What would it take to repair?
I feel like there needs this is coming from a 18-year-old. I feel like we need younger candidates.
I don't know that anybody's arguing with that. I agree with you.
I think we definitely need younger candidates that see like more eye to eye with the younger generation, and they can see somewhat of the older generations.
There are very strong political opinions in the world today. Are you familiar with your peer group having the same strong political opinions, or do you think they're milder? In other words, they're looking for compromise rather than separation.
I think a lot of, at least my friends, would rather see compromise than tear in half.
Yeah.
I think they'd rather see groups come together and rally behind one person or rally behind one party or something like that than to just rip it straight down the middle and just duke it out and and battle it out.
So even in your high school years, there were politics on campus as people ran for student government. They did all these things in order to get elected on a very small scale of student government. Did the candidates for student government try to divide or unite? In other words, has the political climate of today gotten even into student government conversations?
I don't think they've tried to divide. I think it's been, SGA is just, and running for class president and all that stuff, it's kind of been a joke, and it's just like kind of somewhat of a popularity contest at just about every school, I think. So there's not really much political actual stuff to it.
So it's not a good barometer of what your peers think about the world.
I don't think so.
About politics. Okay, interesting. So what about your life thus far? Let's move into the next question. What about your life thus far has prepared you for what's coming next?
Definitely St. Paul's. I think they've definitely prepared me well for college. From many people, I've heard that St. Paul's has been a lot harder than their college, at least freshman year.
Oh, that's the music. So we'll come back. We'll pick that up after break. I'm very curious, not only about academics, but anything outside of academics. Sitting in the studio today, Spencer Marston, my favorite oldest son, is across from me. We'll be right back. We'll pick up with the way the world looks to today's 18-year-old. You're listening to What's Working. Be right back.
You're in business to make money. At United Bank, we're in business to help you manage it. We offer a full line of financial solutions, including business credit cards, business checking, merchant services, and more. We'll work with you to create a bundle of services that fits your business needs. Learn more about how we can help your business grow at unitedbank.com/CAM. Member FDIC. Credit card subject to credit approval.
Hey, this is Cam Marston. My What's Working radio show has given me a front row seat to what's going on in today's workplace and workforce. I'm taking what I've learned and delivering it as a live presentation. If your company, team, or association is looking for a speaker to kick off or wrap up your event, check out my presentations at my website, cammarston.com, or find me on YouTube to watch some sample videos. You can expect actionable and relevant content delivered with lots of humor. On my site, you can find my client list and testimonials. I welcome your calls and your emails. Reach out. Let's find a way to deliver fresh, thought-provoking, actionable content to your event. We're back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston in the studio today. More often than not, my guests are tycoons of industry. They're entrepreneurs. They're people with a business story to tell. Today, we've got a different angle. This has become a tradition with What's Working, is that I get to interview each of my kids as they graduate from high school and hear about the world and how it looks to them as an 18-year-old about to step out of the house and come on their own. My son sitting across from me is Spencer Marston, my favorite oldest son. I've said that a lot in his past, and I'll continue saying it. And we're talking about the way the world looks to an 18-year-old. Spencer, prior to the break, the question was, what part of your life thus far has prepared you the most for what's coming next? You mentioned schooling and the academics that St. Paul's has given you. What else outside of academics? What have you seen or done or experienced that you feel like is good footing for whatever comes next for you?
I think definitely a lot of the values you and Mom have given me. To, like, you've taught me to be polite, to be nice to everyone I meet, and stuff like that. I think that'll definitely help me going forward in the world.
And that's the feedback we get from, and we can't tell you how proud we are, but the feedback we get from our friends who engage you, other adults, is, boy, he's just well-mannered. And as we say in the adult world, he shows well. He presents himself well. Maybe doesn't behave that way around the house, but presents himself well. What else?
I feel like my career in sports has definitely taught me a lot of life lessons. It's taught me how to build a relationship with a team, and which I think will help me in the workplace in the future.
Yeah.
And it's given me a lot of tough times, which I think will help me in the future going through tough times in the world.
Yes. So you were on a state championship football team. You are, as we talk now, about to throw the javelin Friday in the state track meet, where you've had some great success. What specifically will you miss about competition? You may compete at things from here on out. At this point, you don't have a college athletics scholarship. I'm not sure it's part of what you want. But what will you miss about competition? Have you ever thought about it?
Just the thrill of competing. To me, it's always been so fun just to compete. I've always hated losing, though. But so there's nothing like after you play a football game or you throw the javelin or a basketball game, there's nothing like looking up on the scoreboard and seeing that you won or you came in first.
And it's inevitable, and I don't want to be a downer, but it's inevitable that you're going to face some losses in your future in some way or another, whether it's business or another competition that you decide to do in college or post. Define for me a graceful loser? What have you learned about that pain of losing?
Well, I think that so for the football team, at least this year, is like every loss, we would channel it into the next win. Mm-hmm. So we'd take all of our anger out and practice that next week and get ready, geared up for the next game. And then when we get out on the field again, everybody was thinking about that last loss and how we didn't want that to happen again.
What have you learned about leadership in athletics? You had some great team leaders. You were one of the leaders on the team. What has athletics taught you about leadership?
It doesn't take much to lead. It just takes you speaking up and showing the newer people, the younger kids, like the ropes and stuff like that. And it doesn't take a certain person to lead. Anybody can do it. It's just whether you want to or not.
And define wanting to. There are people on the team that just don't want to play that role, or do you feel it's everybody's role?
There's definitely people within teams that just don't want to play the role of a leader. They don't want that responsibility. But if you're willing to take it on and be that leader, then it's very fruitful for you.
What about, let's look at jobs and careers and things like that. What jobs to an 18-year-old look interesting to you right now? Recognizing that the greater part of the world is yet undiscovered for you. What jobs look interesting?
For me, it's always been lawyer and just to be an entrepreneur of some sort.
And define that. What does that mean to you, be an entrepreneur?
Create a business that's useful to people and that'll be useful to people in the future, and that's somewhat of a timeless business.
Yeah. Timeless?
Timeless, that it could go on for years. Just it couldn't get something that couldn't get replaced by completely automated computers.
What might that be?
I'm not sure yet.
Yeah. Where are you looking for ideas about what kind of jobs you could have or what your future looks like?
Kind of the internet. Let's see what people want, what people need, and eventually try to figure out a way to help people get those wants and needs without the use of computers and stuff like that.
Are you so many of the studies that many of my colleagues in the work world cite show that the youth today want to be a TikTok influencer or something like that. Do you see that in your future? You're going to want to be an influencer?
Definitely not.
No. Why is that?
It's just it's too much of a spotlight for me. I don't like the spotlight like that. And also, I think it's just a little weird.
I think it's a little weird too. Okay. Next question. Lots of employers today struggle with employees who want to work from home. I mean, this is a constant question. Even my interview with Heike with Autokumpu, which is a $10 billion business, said they're struggling with people that want to work from home. Anyway, back to the question. The employers say they can't build a workplace culture with employees who work from home. What do you think about that? I mean, work from home was a conversation that was happening in my world prior to COVID. You likely weren't experiencing it. You couldn't have. You weren't in the work world. But it has become a big issue post-COVID. Working from home, what does an 18-year-old today think about that whole concept?
Well, I'm not sure it'll ever change after COVID, the work from home stuff. But I think it's, depending on your job, I think it's you should be able to work from home, but there's many jobs that they need you there.
Sure.
And I think that those jobs that you need you there should be more valued than the people working from home.
Yeah.
Because you're there every day, putting in the work, making relationships with the people at the workplace. I think those should be more valued than the ones that are working from home.
Meaning the ones that are coming to work on site should be paid more?
Yeah, they should be compensated slightly more. Nothing crazy, but definitely compensated slightly more because they're there every day, spending time away from their family or whatnot.
We're talking a little bit about COVID, and this is not on the list of questions I've prepared for you, so we're going off script here. One of the news releases today shows that loneliness is the equivalent of smoking, I think it was 15 cigarettes a day. In other words, loneliness shortens your lifespan. Your generation had an unenviable experience of being isolated at home a great deal during COVID, where the interaction with your peers was much less than perhaps it should have been. Now, I'm a big advocate of the work that our school did to get kids back on campus. I think it was a heroic effort. What do you think the hangover, and that's not a good term, what do you think the long-term impact of the COVID years is going to be on you and your peers? Have you given it some thought?
I haven't really thought about it, but since my grade, we were only freshmen when it happened, I'm not sure there will be a long-term impact because we didn't miss much. We missed a couple months of freshman year, but I think grades that missed a lot of their senior year and a lot of their junior year and stuff like that, I think it'll definitely impact them because they didn't get a lot of those experiences you get as an older high schooler.
What about kids older than you? For example, we have a neighbor who came home from college because the COVID lockdowns on college restricted him from leaving his dorm, and he nearly went bananas there. And ultimately said, this is not what college is about. I'm going crazy. The degree from the school would be great. He was an engineer in an engineering school, but the degree would be great, but not at the sacrifice of my mental health. What do you think about others? Have you heard or had any conversation with people older than you that you think may have a long-term impact on them in some way?
I think it's just the only long-term impact is that I doubt many people were actually doing all their work during COVID, at least college. I feel like they were definitely taking shortcuts here and there, so I'm not sure all the information of their major or whatever from those years they'll know.
Can you imagine if ChatGPT and all the AI stuff had been available prior to COVID, what kind of work-at-home conversations or the students, what their homework would have looked like had they had access to that with no one to monitor them in there? I imagine it would have been a very interesting scenario of people working from home and turning in flawless work, which was obviously done by artificial intelligence. I think we will, and by we, I mean you and me and everybody alive today that's in the, let's say, 15 years old and older, will talk about COVID for the rest of our lives. It has been that big of a deal for the rest of our lives. What would you say to an employer? The show is listened to by lots of employers who are dealing with work from home with their workforce. And they're saying, the employers are saying, we have a culture of completion, we have a culture of get it done, but we cannot spread that culture when people are working from home. We simply can't make the correct eye contact to pass that culture along. Do you have any advice for them?
I feel like you have to make it somewhat enticing to come into work. You have to entice them to come out of their house.
What might that be?
maybe a bigger paycheck or more benefits on their contract or something like that. But maybe give them a couple more days off a year if they come into work, stuff like that. I think you just have to make it more appealing to come into work than to stay at home.
What about an ultimatum? You either come to work or you don't work here anymore. Is that a good idea?
I think it could be, but I think some people, it would be hard to rehire after that.
Yeah, the reputation getting out. Yeah. So I'm curious, looking back on the COVID years during your high school years, what are your thoughts?
I don't know. COVID was just, the music's coming.
Yeah. That signals it's getting close to break, and maybe the music couldn't have come at a better time for us. And the answer to that question, we're listening to What's Working in the studio today with my son, Spencer. We'll be right back.
This is Trey Langus with Transworld Business Advisors. You've worked for years to grow and build your business, and now you're considering an exit strategy. Selling your business can be intimidating and complex. Let our local team at Transworld Business Advisors help you. We are the largest business brokerage in the world, and I will personally and confidentially guide you through this process. I'm Trey Langus. Find me at Transworld Business Advisors or Google my name.
Customer service never goes out of style. In fact, I think it's safe to say that customer service is more valuable and more important now more than ever. Hi, this is Cam Marston. One thing that my over 200 episodes of What's Working has taught me is how important customer service is to building and maintaining a thriving business. It's the growing need for customer service that's led me to partner with one of the state's leading customer service trainers to create our program called Delivering 5-Star Customer Service. Your team will get one 90-minute training session per month for 6 consecutive months. Each session builds on the skills learned the previous month, allowing your customer-facing teams to practice before moving on to the next lesson. And the 6 lessons address everything from appearance to electronic communications to conflict resolution to maintaining a service mindset. Our program travels and is delivered in person at your workplace, nothing virtual. You simply can't practice the level of the skills this course teaches virtually. For more information, email me, cam@cammarston.com, and let's schedule a time to talk. Remember, you have less to fear from outside competition than you do from discourtesy and bad service from inside your own company. Again, email me, cam@cammarston.com, and let's talk about your business. In the studio today, sitting in front of me, is Spencer Marston. A tradition in our family is to interview the kids as they graduate from high school and leave for college. Spencer's the second of these interviews. I interviewed my oldest daughter a couple years ago. She's now a sophomore at Ole Miss. And I guess in 2, maybe 3 more years, I'll interview the twins. We'll have to figure out whether to do them individually or together. Yet another twin conversation. Spencer, first, as we get into segment 3 here, your mother and I are as proud of you as any parents could be. I'm going to get choked up. You make us proud. Let's get back to the questions. How important is college? Where do you want to go in life? Where do you want to go in life? Is college required?
I think it is. I definitely, for me, for the past couple of years, I've wanted to be a lawyer. So I think I definitely need to go to college for that.
Yeah, there's no way to get into law school, to my knowledge, without that in your background. I may be wrong, but tell me about why a lawyer.
I don't know. I've just, through the past couple of years at St. Paul's, we've been doing debates and stuff like that in many of our classes, in our history classes, and I've really enjoyed it. And I felt that I was pretty good at it. If I had enough information, I felt that I was pretty good at it. So that's kind of where my mind fell.
What makes you successful in a debate?
Knowing more than the other person and figuring out a way to articulate your argument to sound better to the people that are listening. So in a court of law, it'd be make your argument sound better to the jury than it does to anyone else.
So what you've described here are mostly trials, being in front of a judge and with a jury with an outcome being decided by the jury. There's an extraordinary amount of law that is more document-oriented, that is more research-oriented. Does that interest you at all?
It does. I think, getting a case and researching it and figuring out, getting down to the facts of the case is very intriguing, breaking it down, and I think that's very interesting.
So what would this track require of you in college? If that's your future, what do you'll be on campus here in the fall. What is step one to making that happen?
General business degree.
Yeah.
And then hopefully get into law school.
And tell me, are you in pursuit? Have you registered for classes? Here's what I don't know. Have you registered yet?
Not till we're done with Bama Bound.
Yeah. Okay. And that's when? June? July?
Early June.
Is that what Mom's calling orientation?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about parents going to orientation? So I'll give you some perspective. When I was a student at Tulane, my parents essentially pushed me out of the car and pushed my stuff out behind me. They were ready for me to be gone. There was not a orientation for parents. That's relatively new. And by new, I mean 25 years. What do you think about parents going to college orientation? Is that a good idea, or should we just jump out and leave our kids to figure it out themselves?
I feel like it makes the parents feel safer knowing what the campus looks like and where kind of the areas where you'll be. So I feel like it definitely makes the parents feel better about it.
What are you looking forward to in a college experience? So we've talked about general business degree and your goals of going to law school. What else?
I'm excited to meet people from different places, and because I only really know people from Mobile and then a couple people from up north of us. But I'm really excited to meet people from new places and kind of broaden my range of who I know and stuff like that.
And how will you go about doing that? I mean, we've talked a little bit about loneliness. Loneliness has a lot to do with making friends. Making friends isn't easy. What's the process on a college campus of meeting someone new?
Well, I guess just who's in your classes, and then especially at Alabama, the Greek system is definitely a big way to meet new people.
Yeah. And that's going to be important to you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. It certainly was to me. In fact, as you know, I spent the weekend with a friend of mine from Michigan City, Indiana, that I met in college and never even knew that city existed prior to going to college and meeting these new people out there. So let's talk a little bit about your generation versus mine. I am what's called a Generation Xer, and nothing quite makes my blood boil as when you and the kids look at me and say, okay, boomer. First, it's a way to shut me up, and second, it's not accurate. Nevertheless, I am what's called a Generation Xer. We have all these uniquenesses to us, just like each generation has. You're what's called a member of Gen Z, also known as the iGen. Gen Z and iGen. What are the differences in your generation versus mine? And if you can, this is a stretch, what does that mean for the workplace? Let's start with the differences in the generations.
I'm not completely sure about the differences in the generation as a whole. I think we're probably fairly similar. It's just we've grown up in different times.
Yeah.
We've had access to different technologies growing up, and access to, I guess, when you were growing up, there wasn't phones, there wasn't really the internet, was there?
Not in the early years. The internet became familiar to me late in college and just beyond that.
Yeah, so you didn't have access to as many people as our generation has. Like, we've had access to, when we first get our iPad, get our phone, we've had access to view and see millions of different people around the world. And y'all didn't have that. Y'all knew there was other people around the world, but it was kind of just where you were. Those are the people you knew. You didn't meet people from all over the place because of the social media.
Yeah, the social media has certainly expanded your horizons in ways that wasn't available to me. And you'll roll your eyes and laugh at this, but I remember as a child, we relegated long distance calls. You don't even recognize that phrase. Long distance calls, which are outside of our city, to after 8 p.m. because the rates were cheaper. Now you can pick up your phone and dial, like your older sister, our daughter will be in South Africa this summer for a JYA thing. We'll be able to dial her nearly like a local call and just pick up the phone. It's almost astonishing to me. It's not even really remarkable to you. That's the way the world is. So other than the internet and the exposure it's given kids your age, What else is different from your generation and mine?
I feel like we're probably, as a whole, the generation is definitely a lot softer and a lot more sensitive.
You feel that way. Most people in your generation buck that. They say that's not true. What do you think? Keep going. This is interesting.
I think as a whole, the generation is definitely a lot softer than previous generations because of the internet, because of things they've seen, and so it makes it more open to them. Like, they know more of what's going on in the world. So I think it makes you a little more sensitive towards things like global warming and stuff that's going on in the environment.
So you use the word softer. What does that mean?
More sensitive.
More sensitive to it. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think in certain cases it can be a good thing, but in other cases it can definitely be a bad thing.
Give me an example of a good thing.
Well, with the environment, how with extinct animals and animals that are being protected and going extinct, like, people are definitely more sensitive about that because they don't want to see those animals go extinct. So they put more word out there to protect these animals, and it'll gain traction on the internet, and eventually it could come up to the president, and he could write a bill protecting these animals or something like that.
So do you define that as being soft?
Not being soft, but being a little more sensitive to what's going on in the world.
Sensitive to other people, other things out there. So the benefit of being soft is being more aware, more empathetic, if you will. What are the detractors to being soft? What's the other side of that coin?
I'd say, cancel culture.
Yeah.
And I think I don't think that's good for society at all.
Define the cancel culture. Let me make sure you and I are using the word the same way.
So a big celebrity makes a mistake, they say something wrong, and people band together and they cancel them. And they're like, you're not going to, if it's, let's say, an actor, you're not going to get any more roles, none of that, because we've canceled you. And so if anybody else decides to hire you for an acting job, then they're just as bad as you.
Oh, so the cancel culture becomes almost contagious. Those that hire them or engage with them in some way are canceled as well. Is that right?
Yeah. So
that's a negative side of being soft.
I think that's definitely a negative.
How do we cure that? Do you care about curing it?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's possible to cure it at this point. It's kind of run rampant for the past 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
So
I guess that's another part of the internet is anybody with the cancel culture has a voice. They can get people to listen to them. What are the strengths of my generation from the way you see it?
I think you'll definitely. So your generation is kind of mostly the parent star generation.
That's correct.
So I think we have very opposing views on the way we grow up, and I think for us, it's good to have that opposing view when you're like, for me, like, I social media, blah blah blah. And then you come and tell me, like, get off the phone, go look at that, go out into the world, go do something. I think that's definitely very important for kids these days, is that they need to get off their phone and go do something, hang out with friends instead of just sitting there on their phone.
When I give presentations, I show a slide that is the number of times per year a 12th grader goes out on the weekend. And it is a decline. So it starts in the year 1976. And from there, it is a slope downward of the number of times per year 12th graders go out. Now, I know you, my boy, break that trend. You're very good at breaking that trend. But it's a very clear downhill slope of less engagement of going out. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm sure if you put a graph of the improvement of technology up against that graph, they would come together.
Yeah, you're right. Music's up. My boy, good luck.
Thank you.
We'll be back after this break. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston.
You're in business to make money. At United Bank, we're in business to help you manage it. We offer a full line of financial solutions, including business credit cards, business checking, merchant services, and more. We'll work with you to create a bundle of services that fits your business needs. Learn more about how we can help your business grow at unitedbank.com/CAM. Member FDIC. Credit card subject to credit approval.
Hi, this is Tony McCarron. When I'm not out recruiting the best and the brightest that the city of Mobile has to offer, I'm listening to What's Working with Cam Marston. Now back to the show.
Welcome back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. Thank you for joining us. In keeping up with today's theme, we're going to finish off the show with a commentary. A young lady who I've been introduced to, Emma Gage is her name. A student, an incoming junior, as we record this, has been a fan of Taylor Swift's for a long, long time. And for a show that focuses on trends in the workplace and in the marketplace, there is no bigger one than Taylor Swift, her extraordinary tour that's taking the country by storm, the long lines of people, the hurdles people are going through in order to get tickets and see her show. I reached out to Emma Gage, who is a friend of mine's daughter, who had recently been to one of her shows in Houston, and said, "Hey, Emma, how about teaching some people about my age about Taylor Swift? We know she's big. How about telling me why?" She immediately took the bit in her teeth and has produced a commentary for us today. Ladies and gentlemen, meet a young lady who's got a big future, Emma Gage.
So I still have not recovered from seeing Taylor Swift's Eras Tour on April 23rd in Houston. I've been a fan of Taylor since I can remember, and watching her perform my favorite songs for 3.5 hours was one of the happiest nights of my life. To some, Taylor Swift is the 33-year-old love story singer who dates lots of guys. But if you look deeper, Swift is a worldwide phenomenon who not only puts on fantastic shows, but writes deep, genuine lyrics about her life that everybody can relate to. I, for one, depended on her music during a really difficult season. Her songs made me feel seen when I felt completely alone. That's who she is, a person who for 17 years has shared her stories to connect with her fans to make them feel valued. One of these songs for me is called Begin Again from her 2012 Red album. She played it as a surprise song at the Houston concert, and I felt like she played it for me. Besides her recent 10th studio album, Midnight, Swift's latest venture has been re-recording her first 6 albums. In 2019, Taylor's record company, Big Machine Records, sold her music to Scooter Braun, a big-name record executive. This happened without her knowledge or consent. Swift wanted to own her work, so she decided to recreate her music. She began with Fearless Taylor's version, followed by Red Taylor's version, both in 2021. And she recently announced Speak Now Taylor's version to be released on July 7th, and I'm literally counting down the days. Completely serious. Swifties get to revisit nostalgic songs like You Belong With Me and I Knew You Were Trouble with updated vocals. Taylor herself finds pride in owning her music. Her revolutionary way to do this set a new bar in the music industry. She does not give up with face of the setback. Another setback that she faced was the COVID-19 pandemic, canceling her 2020 tour, celebrating her 7th chronological and first self-owned album, Lover. 3 years later, Taylor gave back to her fans who kept loving her and her music with the Eras Tour. She opened with saying, "It's been a long time coming," and it certainly has been, because over 2.4 million people bought tickets to the tour. They sold out every show in the Ticketmaster presale in one day. With 85 million monthly listeners on Spotify, you can see the issue. So many people were in the queue to buy tickets that the website crashed. Luckily, I was given the opportunity to buy a ticket and go with my dad to the concert. The 8-hour drive was completely worth it. The Eras Tour is 10 sets, one for each album era. She performs each set like its own concert, with different outfits, set pieces, and dances. My dad described it as a Broadway show on steroids. Swift takes every detail into account to create the best experience for her fans. Taylor Swift has a huge influence on millions of people, especially young women who also experience heartbreak, joy, and every emotion in between. The Eras Tour celebrates not only how far Taylor has come in her career, but how her fans have grown up with her. My name is Emma Gage. Taylor Swift means so much to me, and I can't get enough of her music, who she is, and what she stands for.
Thank you, Emma. Wonderful job. Folks, for many of us, you may know this, I do commentaries for Alabama Public Radio. They're 3 minutes each week. It probably takes me 6 or 8 tries to get the commentary the way I want it. Emma nailed that in 2 tries. 2 tries, maybe 3. But one of them, she said, "I think I can do better," and went back and did it again. Emma, thank you again very much. Taylor Swift phenomenon is something that He's just taken the world by storm. I don't know that I've even ever heard one of her songs, but you'd be a fool. You'd be living under a rock to claim that you don't know who she is. That wraps us up this week, folks. A youth-oriented show. Thank you for tuning in. What's Working is produced by John Thompson with Eye on Digital. Check him out, EYEON Digital. Find us on all the social media outlets and email me. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you got a show idea. I'd love to hear you. whatsworkingcam.com is the website. We'll have another show next week. Have a good week, everybody.